Welcome to Just Thinking. This is Mary Greendale. The title of this show grew out of a lifetime of curiosity about many different subjects. Some local, some global, and some in between. For each show, I will open with my thoughts and then bring on guests who explore the subject in greater detail. I hope the show inspires healthy discussions on camera and among viewers. To me, the sky's the limit when we are just thinking. Hi, I'm Mary Greendale, and welcome to another episode of Just Thinking. Today our topic is diversity. I moved to Holliston in 1966 at the age of 21 as a new mother, having grown up in Springfield, Massachusetts, which was very diverse and far more vibrant than it is today. My first 9 years were spent in a neighborhood that was very diverse. My friends from school, my church, my neighborhood were whatever. I drew no distinction and knew no distinction until I became aware of the conversations of my parents and their friends, and those conversations were very prejudiced against color. For 7th grade, I was sent to a private girls' school that was as white could be. But there were many Jewish girls. Whatever. There were no distinctions. There were none either when one girl came from China and one black student enrolled in my junior year. Then I moved to Holliston, just as the Queens development was being built. That meant nothing to me, but to some of the tried and true natives, there was concern about the influence of a new kind of people, those who were Jewish, who were moving into this neighborhood with house designs that were more like New York than New England. The newcomers came with different ideas about education and about keeping dogs on leashes. Tie up dogs? They were born to run. That's how the debate went at the first town meeting I ever attended. It didn't take many years for these new people to become prominent citizens within the town, bringing a thriving volunteerism, service in town government, passion for high educational standards, and even a temple. Today, there is no trace of the us and them regarding Jewish people. But what about folks with different skin or cultural practices from other parts of the world or country? Are they welcome here today? Are their children folded into the schools like the white kids, whatever their ancestry? There's a Facebook page called, and I believe I have this wrong, Diverse Holliston, but I think it's United in Diverse Holliston or something to that effect. And I see from reading the posts and comments that perhaps there are some problems with the blending of colors and ethnicities. I, for one, subscribe to there being no races except the human race. I agree with the anthropologists and scientists who say there are not biological differences enough to separate us into races, but what does separate us are the cultures. So today we will start a discussion on diversity in Holliston with the women who founded the Facebook page. In the future, I will bring on other guests and experts to further examine diversity right here in Holly Rock. Let's get started on what I hope will be just the beginning of more discussions among residents in town. Joining me, Francesca Douyon. I'm going to practice my French before this is over. And Michelle Diamond, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. And it is both of you who started the Facebook page.
It is, in addition to a few other people,
yes,
that one of them, Jeff Parrott, still moderates with us.
Okay, and let's give the right name of the page that I totally ruined.
It's Diverse Holliston.
Diverse Holliston.
Yes.
Okay, so that we have that. Good. All right. So what prompted it? Why did you start it?
When I moved here.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
I moved here a little over a year ago.
Okay.
And I was coming from Salt Lake City with my husband and I are a family who was created through transracial adoption. So my son has brown skin. He is multi-ethnic. And we were involved in a transracial adoption community there. And that experience taught me that I needed to seek out people of color for my son.
Okay.
And so as we've been raising him, I needed to expand my horizons more and make sure that I had more of a diverse background, not white by accident surroundings, so that he could learn how to grow up to be a strong black person. Because I can't teach him that. I can teach him how to be a good person. I can't teach him how to be a black person in our society. And so inspired by Tamoria McQueen Saba.
Yes.
who started the Hopkinton Diversity Alliance.
Okay.
Jeff and Parrott and I had met with her to talk about starting our own diversity alliance here. And I had already known Francesca through our children went to school together. They went to the Holliston Community Children's Center together. And I'm a firm believer that any diversity organization needs people of color at its head. It's because white people who try to address and talk about diversity with all white organizations really aren't helping anything. Yeah. So I sort of pestered Francesca until she got on Facebook to join us and help lead us.
That's right. I didn't have a Facebook page, and I had to create one, and it's been great. The topic of our group, though, was mostly discussed at this bubble jam that our before and after school program has, and just
bubble jam.
It's called the bubble jam, and basically you jam out to bubbles, and it was great. It was
bubbles?
Really great.
Blowing bubbles.
Yes, blowing bubbles.
It was a family picnic that the Holliston Community Children's Center had for the end of the school year.
And I was new there, and
what a cool idea.
That is a cool idea. We actually had a lot of fun.
You can't be really, really too aggressive or hostile or anything else like that when you're blowing bubbles.
Yeah, it was such a great time. However, not a lot of people spoke to me, and Michelle noticed that, and not that I took it offensive, you know, it's not like I was walking around, you know, trying to introduce myself as well, but I just feel like if our kids are going to be, you know, together in the same building, you know, I should get to know you and you should get to know me, even if, you know, we don't do play dates or whatever the case may be. And when Michelle brought the group, you know, to my attention, I was like, I'm all for it, because look at this, you know, we're at a dance for our kids and no one besides Michelle is speaking to me.
And our children had been going to school together all year.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know.
So the kids probably didn't notice a thing. It would be like my own oblivion growing up.
They were just playing.
Right, another kid.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was anything intentional behind it, other
I don't think
than
so either. It's just,
I don't know her, so I'm not saying anything to her. But to me, after learning more about race and experiences of race and experiences that people of color have, it was painfully obvious to me that I felt like Francesca was isolated in the sea of white, and it was uncomfortable for me to watch that and not do anything.
Good for you. Good for you. So how long have you lived here?
I moved February 1st, 2016.
Okay, all right. And so the diverse, you know, the Facebook page, about a year? Has it been up there about a year?
August. August
Okay.
2017.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And what was the reaction? I mean, I know what it's been on there, but I mean, just talking with people.
Well, our first event that we ever had, it was a great turnout. We did a vigil for the Charlottesville shooting. It was great. We did it right at the Congregational Church.
No, not shooting.
Excuse me.
The young woman who was run over by the Nazis.
That's right.
I'm sorry, I got that wrong.
Yep.
The Charlottesville, yes.
Yeah, it's the riots and whatever you'd call it, yeah.
So confusing, so many different,
Unfortunately, there are too many to keep them straight.
Yeah.
Yes.
I apologize about that.
That's okay.
How many people? We had, like...
Probably had almost 200.
Yeah, it was...
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it was a really great turnout. Everybody just kind of, after Michelle and I spoke, everybody just kind of spoke out and, you know, expressed how they felt. There were so many people there, people from Texas, people from Rhode Island. Some were like visiting their, you know, family members that live in the town. One of the girls went to school out there. Some people grew up in the town and now have kids of their own, and you know, they were just saying like, yeah, I only had like one black friend. I remember this girl, very vivid. Her name was Meredith, and she said, I only had one black friend growing up in high school, and my high school times were great, but hers were horrible. She used to just, you know, not ever want to go out. The prom wasn't really good for her either. She couldn't wait to leave the town. And it was a good turnout, though.
I think your experience has been different than my experience.
Yeah.
I've had a few people push back and say, well, I don't understand why we need this. We're an open and inclusive town. And for the most part, I believe that's true. But there's a difference between saying that we're open and inclusive and then understanding the dynamics that make this place lack diversity.
Right.
And where I feel like you get a lot more personal messages, direct messages from people wanting to talk about their experiences.
Yeah, and it's not pleasant. And you know, it's honestly really hurtful because I've been through a lot. I didn't just look at a map of Massachusetts and say, Holliston, this is where I want to live. I transitioned from living in a shelter for 3 years with my daughter. Framingham reminded me too much of the city. I'm from Lynn. I don't really have a good, you know, background out there. And I just, not that I'm running from my life, I just want something better for my daughter. Consistency for my daughter. When we were in the shelter, we moved 6 times in 2.5 years.
And she had to change schools with
She had to, well, at the time, she was in daycare.
Preschool, okay.
So it wasn't, you know, it wasn't that bad, but
well,
it was for me. You know, it was a new experience for me. I was a young mom. Mm-hmm. I lived in Lynn. They placed me in Leominster. I moved to Framingham. But once I got out, that was the only apartment that would rent to me. So I am very thankful to be in Holliston today. And I promised my daughter that, you know, we're not going to move anymore. We're going to stay here. You're going to go to one school. I didn't go to one school. I went to 5 different high schools. There's only 4 years, and I went to 5 different high schools growing up. So I don't want that for my daughter. Mm-hmm. And when I came to the town, I had absolutely no idea. I signed a lease and didn't even see my place. So I was a very desperate mother, just trying to, you know, make a change. So when I got here, you know, I noticed. Like,
it's hard not to.
Yeah, there were not a lot of people like me and my daughter. And when I enrolled her into HCCC, I had expressed to the director and her partner, you know, there's not a lot of people of color. And the year prior to that, we had just found out my daughter was diagnosed with vitiligo, which is a skin disease, and it's also an autoimmune disease. It's skin pigmentation and blotches. So on top of there not being a lot of people in the town that look like us, we also have to, you know, deal with the fact that we won't know where those blotches of pigmentation is going to be. A lot of people that have vitiligo suffer with depression, have very low self-esteem. So when I went, you know, to HCCC, they made me very comfortable. They gave me a lot of resources and just, you know, informed me that if I ever needed anything, you know, I could either come in, don't hesitate to call, you could just come right in. If you want to just check in, you can, you know, whatever is going to make you feel comfortable. And I've had a really great time. The only, you know, bad experience that I've had is one of the children at the center prior to them getting on the bus. Now, this is a year later. This is after Charlene has left kindergarten and she's enrolled into 1st grade. So she's already been with these kids for a whole year. So this is year 2. And she went to school with an afro, and, you know, the other student was making remarks of her afro, and it was really hard. From September to December, I had to constantly drill in my daughter's head, like, you're beautiful, your afro's beautiful, it's okay. You know, they don't understand that there are so many different people in the world with so many different types of textures of hair. You know, they eat different things. They listen to different music. You know, they do things differently. And, you know, I don't want you to go to school and be mad at these kids. I want you to help them for them to understand. So what we did was we went out and got some books like Big Hair Don't Care, and we were able, over the Christmas time, some of the kids brought in books to read, during reading time. So that was really good. But I didn't really get any feedback from the parent. Totally did not, answer or say anything to me. And I never brought it to the director's attention, only because it wasn't her issue to deal with. I feel like it was the parents' issue to deal with. And so since I didn't get anything out of that, I went extra hard with this diverse group. And I'm determined to just give as much as I can, like information as I can, to inform people that are misinformed about Black people, because I'm Black. Now, we have other people in our diverse group that are from all types of backgrounds. And I, expressed to everyone, like, they can answer. The other day, we had someone ask a question about, like, Chinese giving gift or something.
Chinese gift-giving traditions.
Yes.
Right. So,
along
if I may.
those lines. Yes, you may.
So one of our purposes of Diverse Holliston is to try to include everyone in the community. Although
Yes.
Francesca and I, our focus is on issues of race and color because of where she's coming from and where my family is coming from. We have asked people from the disability community, from the LGBTQ community,
everyone. Everybody is
we want
included.
everyone, although they haven't been as vocal, we've been trying to encourage them to jump in on this conversation, because again, even though there are services for people in our community, it doesn't mean that they feel like they have a place for their voice.
Right.
This is true. And another thing with what Francesca was saying about the hair texture and the issues that she had with her daughter had with a child at school, is that this is why we feel like Diverse Holliston is necessary, is that these conversations need to be happening in our homes. As white people, we need to be having conversations in our home that talk about race consciousness and talk about the difference between people and how this is only really a surface difference, but people have different hair texture, and that's all it is a texture. Right? People have different skin color. That's all it is a color.
Right.
But there are cultures, as you said, that go with that we need to understand and respect. And if you don't have any exposure to that, you don't know how to deal with that.
Exactly.
I agree with all of it. So when you started to describe your own experience, one of the things that I think you said was that you were getting some feedback and people were calling you because you are visible and out in front there.
Yes.
Okay. And that what you were hearing was disturbing.
Yes. What I mean by disturbing, I mean, for example, why would you move to a predominantly white town? Now, after
someone was asked that.
I was asked
You
that.
were asked
I
that.
was asked that. Why would I move to a predominantly white town if I was not happy with it being a predominantly white town? And after me explaining to you how I ended up in this town, it's like, why does that matter? That's not a solution to the problem at hand.
Well, it's an antagonistic question to start with, but again,
it's making a victim of the victim. But.
Absolutely. But so part of this conversation also has to be, from my perspective, is how does this become a predominantly white town? Right? What are the social systems and government systems that made this a predominantly white town to start with? That made any of our towns predominantly white towns and wound up with people of color primarily in underfunded city housing.
Redlining.
Redlining. Well, our government, there's documented history of our government tearing down interracial neighborhoods and segregating them in the 1920s. And then there's also documented history in the 1950s of white towns specifically being created after World War II, with racial covenants, and so there was nowhere else for Black people to go. So this is how towns like this become white, and then we ask, what do you want to do here?
Well, the interesting thing is that, as I said in my opening thing, I've been here for 50 years, and those years were all as an adult. I didn't grow up here, so I had no preconceived comfort with the town. I had no bond to the town. It was just where we landed.
Yeah.
We weren't anywhere near as thoughtful as you. I mean, we just sort of landed here, you know.
Yeah.
I can remember periods of time during the 70s when we were talking about zoning. And there would be some people, and this is not that everybody went this way, because otherwise it would have all happened differently, but where people were alarmed that in Boston they were building high-rises. This would be Columbia Point, this would be Alewife, and all of the others that were the tall, you know, buildings and so forth. And then moving every poor person that they could find, and I'm not sure that they were, you know, just black. I don't think that they were. I think it was anybody that was poor was going to be put in these places as opposed to.
Is that a part of the project?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've certainly had some conversations that could have gone down that path, but it's never been explored. It's never been explored because those times in which we have had black people who lived here, Rosie, whatever his name was, that was Rosie Greer, I don't know. He was a football player, okay? Okay, he lived here. He was, but, you know, so he was a black that came with title, okay? Another black family, the young boys that grew up here, they were popular. They were just, you know, popular because they were jocks. They were athletic, that kind of thing. We've always had just, you know, the one or two or maybe three of black, brown, or whatever, but never a mass enough that they could ever really have their own level of comfort that there were some other people that shared their culture.
For decades, black people have been left out of generational poverty because of when you don't let them buy a house to start with, when you don't give them federal grants to buy a house and federally fund their house buying, then the white families get far ahead. The black families are left behind. I mean, in Boston, was it recently said that a black family has a net worth of $8.
I heard
$8. That is
sad.
It's beyond sad. It's appalling.
Actually,
right?
it's just one of those questions that's mind-numbing. You can't even imagine.
So the only way to fix this situation really is to create affordable housing in predominantly white communities and make sure that Section 8 housing is accepted. You know, nobody can legally discriminate against Section 8 housing, but they can find lots of ways not to take it.
Yes,
right?
And they have.
So,
and they have.
Absolutely.
And they definitely have. And I'm so thankful for my landlord. You guys have no idea. I searched for 3 months for an apartment. And I think...
In Holliston or anywhere?
Anywhere in Massachusetts. I had a time budget. When it got down to the 2 weeks, they told me that they were not going to extend it, and if I didn't find a place, they were going to give my voucher to the next family on the list. So, like I said, Mary, I didn't even see my apartment when I signed my lease. I was very desperate, and I just want to stay here. But I also want to stay here and be comfortable. I don't want to be in a town where, you know, my daughter's going to be going to school with children a whole year, and then the next year you're making rude remarks about simply because she wore her hair out. That's unacceptable. You know, and another disturbing comment was, why fix the education if it's not broken? Every day since the year has started, I've posted on my own personal Facebook page, not the diverse page, my own personal Facebook page. I would like to see people of color working in or for Holliston Public Schools. I plan to do that until the end of the year as well to see, you know, where I get. But that was one of the comments, like, why fix the education if it's not broken? For a person like me, the education was never fixed. You know, growing up, I had no history. And there was just that one little bit of information about the Haitian Revolution, because basically America needed Haiti, right? And without them, a lot of things wouldn't be the way that they are right now if that Haitian Revolution didn't happen. By the way, Mary, I'm 100% Haitian.
I was wondering.
Yes. And that was all the history that I can remember. Now, the things that I know now are things that they don't have in textbooks. My daughter's going to go to school, graduate her 12th year, and she's never going to really fully understand about leaders that were assassinated, you know, that basically paved the way for us, that fought and protested and got murdered and killed, you know, just so Michelle and I could be friends today.
Yeah, oh yes, well, so my family could even exist, quite honestly. I mean, you think about, I mean, in my journey, what I've started to realize, just how, I mean, everyone knows history is whitewashed, but to what extent, right? And how our country has been built really on the backs of black people,
literally,
through slavery, and it's not just the South, right? The North had institutions that supported and funded and ensured slavery.
Yes.
So I mean, this was a whole system that treated people as chattel, as animals, and of course, you know, because they were kept out of education. They were not allowed to learn to read. They were used as hard labor and disposable. You know, they didn't get to write history books. So we don't learn about leaders. We don't learn about educators. We don't learn about inventors. We don't learn anything about Harriet Tubman, other than that she ran the runaway, the Underground Railroad. We don't learn about everything she did for the community during her entire life. The nursing home she ran, the black community she supported. Right? No one talks about Marcus Garvey.
No one talks about Margie Joyner. She's the one who basically invented the hairdryer. You know.
So I mean, there's a lot of history.
Did you post a list of black inventors?
Yes.
Yeah, I was reading
I'm
down
trying
that.
my best to, you know, inform the people. That is like basically my main. There are other main focuses, but one of my main focuses are to inform the people, like, you know, we have really great people too. We've done a lot of great things too. You know, we've created most of the equipments that's still being used today in 2018, but you aren't going to learn that in a textbook going to public schools. And for me, the education was never fixed. To me, the education has always been broken. So that was very disturbing. And again, I don't see how that comment is coming up with a solution to the problem.
Well, that comment suggests there is no problem.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so I think that's, to me, part of, maybe I'm minimizing things, is until we get to all agree that there's a problem, the whole effort has to be demonstrating how that problem exists and how we're part of it.
Absolutely, and some of that is education, in my opinion, right? So for children like my son and Francesca's daughter, they don't have any role models in school.
None.
Because they don't have any people of color in school as teachers. Now, that doesn't mean that my son doesn't see professional people of color. Right? It doesn't mean that he'll never achieve anything, but black children go through majority of their education, studies have shown, without seeing a professional of color. That affects their self-esteem.
Yes.
That affects their emotional development, and it does affect their ability to dream about what they can be. Right? My son deserves that. You know, yes, I did choose to move here, but that doesn't mean that I can't choose to help make it a better place.
Oh boy, I'm stunned by the idea. I did choose to move here. It's like, otherwise, the implication is that you would choose to move where there are predominantly black neighborhoods, and yet
I could have.
I could have too, but
right?
You've been there.
I've lived there.
You know what that
I've been
means.
raised there. You know, I could give you a little 2 minutes of how it is. Growing up, I fought over somebody stepping on my sneakers. You know, I'm in school to learn. Why are you trying to fight me because I accidentally stepped on your Jordans? Oh my goodness, you know, silly things like that. People didn't like me because of who my older siblings were. Now, were they, you know, angelic people? No, but I am my own person. You cannot define me because of who I am related to. I am me. But that's what my experience was. Till this day, if I go to the city and I run into a certain group of women, it's not going to be a pretty sight. And I have a child that I'm caring for, and I don't have time for that because you don't like what my sisters did to you 10, 15 odd years ago, which is why I wouldn't go.
Right. So you shouldn't even have to.
Well,
shouldn't even be part of the equation.
Well, a comment like that presupposes that people of color and ethnicity don't have a right to be enfranchised in this town.
Yeah.
It just says they're different.
Right.
And they're not. And that's, to me, which is why I always go back to the anthropologists that say there are no races.
Right.
When I grew up, it was defined as the Caucasians, the Negroids, and that's how they were labeled.
Yes.
And
We were just having this conversation.
And the Mongolians.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Those
what
are
they
racist
were.
terms.
There was a
All three of
fourth one, and I can't remember what that
It was the one for Australia.
But
And
that-
whatever there was the fourth one was, and it was even optional, because I went back and looked it up before we had this conversation.
And because this is from the 18th century, and this was from a scientist.
Well, I'm not that old, Michelle.
Well, no, you're not that old. But those terms come from the 18th century,
Yeah.
and from a scientist who was measuring Caucasian skulls, and who determined that Caucasians were the most beautiful people because they were from the Caucasus region, and was incorrect in making a theory that the human race originated from the Caucasus Mountains. Now, interestingly enough, that term has been mutated to be white Europeans through our legal system from, I believe, the 1920s. There was a Hindi man who tried to get citizenship in the United States. He was excluded from citizenship because of his skin color, but he said, I am from the Caucasus Mountain region. I am Caucasian. And the U.S. Supreme Court decided that that term, Caucasian, which I believe is a racist term, applies to only people of white European background.
So have you heard that on the census, the federal census, they now want to break it down much more so that you're not only talking about, as it is now, you're Hispanic, you're white, whatever the other thingies are. Now they want to get down to what country you're from?
Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's a way to deport people, quite honestly.
Yeah,
but I mean,
I
if you look even at the term Hispanic, Hispanic is a group of different groups of people that have been lumped together for convenience and doesn't actually make a definition of where people are from.
It doesn't make any sense, because if you go back to even the 1800s with the Caucasian, Mongolian, don't want to get those mixed up, and Negroid, Hispanics don't fit in there anywhere.
At all.
Okay? So they just didn't exist, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Or they were white.
Right. Well, I mean, you can be Hispanic and still not have a race category on there,
Right.
Because
Well,
your
people from
options are still
Spain-
white, black.
I mean, but in the one breath, it's the white Caucasian. Spain fits into the European model.
Yes.
Completely, but somehow it's different from Mexico or Peru or wherever. But anyway, what do you hope to accomplish this year, 2018?
Well, I don't really know necessarily for the year, but I know that we do want to become a nonprofit organization. We do want to, get in the schools, maybe form some type of groups in the schools.
I'm pretty sure that one of our goals this year is to try to meet with Brad Jackson. We've been kind of slow getting on the ball with us, but we want to meet with him because we want to start this conversation with him about not only diversifying the educators in the school, but a cultural bullying policy. Yes. Because I mean, the fact of the matter is that our children are going to encounter racism. And it doesn't have to be. Can't really find the word. It doesn't have to be outwardly antagonistic. It doesn't have to be somebody actually using the N-word. It can be people talking about hair texture.
Black kids. There are other kids.
Isn't there a diversity thing up here that is prompted by? I'm sure. Let me nod and say I'm pretty sure there is. There is a group up here at the high school because they put on events and there's been fundraising events for this diversity group. Now they are.
From the high school? Are you talking about Embrace Culture, possibly?
Embrace Culture, yeah.
But that's a different one.
Okay,
that's a different one.
Because they're a Ugandan organization.
No. This was started by right here, and I know that over my shoulder, my camera person knows exactly what I'm talking about. But at any rate, there is a diversity group up here,
we never
and it's
knew
primarily.
Right. Well, that's the thing.
If you think about.
Sorry.
And I think it was started by folks who either came from India, Pakistan, whatever, because we do have a group of folks, many of whom have settled in a particular neighborhood in town, but certainly scattered throughout town as well, from those cultures, and I remember there was a big dance, and I know we did a show on it. This is embarrassing.
The Indian community.
Are you talking? I know that they usually do a celebration every year at Holliston Elementary School.
Yeah. Remember
Diwali? Oh yeah,
for Diwali.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know, one thing that I've been told is that community is a little difficult to break into because they have their own internal supports. We haven't had a lot of activity on our Facebook page from the Indian, Pakistani, Hindi community. It's definitely a community that we want to connect more with.
Yeah.
We think we'd be, we'd work great together. So that's another thing we're doing this year is trying to identify what is in the community and who we can partner with.
Yes, and a lot more footwork as well. Whether it be volunteering, for the school committee, Tamora.
You do realize that you can run for office,
Yes,
right?
there
the
are.
elections, the openings are now, kind of thing.
Someone did mention it to me. However, someone was the same someone who had personally messaged me and asked me why did I move to a predominantly white town. So I didn't. I read it and I left it on read, and that was it.
Maybe he was just curious, or she was just curious.
Maybe.
I don't know.
But even in that curiosity, that's what they call a microaggression.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a racism group, a discussion group at the Congregational Church. I don't know. We meet like 6 times a year, it seems. And as a result of that group, there have been any number of books that have been going around. So like Growing Up White, is that one? I mean, that's
an incredible book.
Yeah, that is.
I haven't read it.
Yeah, I have it. If you want it, you can borrow it. Okay. But the point is that we've been reading a lot of these, and the other one we just finished in my book group was the Summer Sons. What is it? Before the Summer Sons, Beyond the Summer Sons, whatever it is. It's stories of African Americans starting three different people starting back. Way back, and then following their lives and their experiences coming north. It's about
The Warmth of Other Suns.
Warmth of Other Suns.
About the Great Migration.
Yes.
That's an incredible book.
That's an incredible book.
What book haven't you read?
There are a lot of books I haven't read.
Unfortunately, they put out new ones every
Constantly.
day.
Right now I'm reading So You Want to Talk About Race by...
I seen that on Facebook.
I cannot pronounce her name. Ijeoma Alo? She's a writer, and she's a wonderful writer and advocate. But this is, I mean, it's predominantly, it's made for people who are white to talk about why we have problems having these difficult conversations, why they're uncomfortable, and what we can do to quite honestly listen more to people of color about what their experience is.
Well, I have a vivid imagination, and I like to write, and I've often thought about rewriting American history where the blacks and the whites became a unit and then did the same path of history. And what would have been different? How would it have been different?
Yeah.
You know,
And
it's in my own imagination, it's great.
Yeah, I would like to add to that imagination. You know, it's kind of hard for you to sit there and say, you know, when we talk about history and you can't include, you know, people of color, how can't you? We were there.
Well, that's the thing. You've been by our sides constantly since the beginning. You were right back. You were there.
Yeah. Right
from the get-go. And when you think whether it's World War II or all of those other, you know, whenever, these periods that we don't think about, but you have always been here.
We have.
Always been here.
And
as much as we have.
So the diverse page, I've met so many amazing people, a lot of amazing people. The other day, I had movie night at one of the members' houses, and we watched Hidden Colors 4. I recommend, if you haven't watched it, to watch it. It basically just gives us a rundown about things that you won't know in textbooks. Like, for example, the African community was infected with syphilis. The men. The men spread it to the wives, and the wives spread it to the children through breastfeeding. They also talked a lot about the Nile River and Egypt's being Kemet's. What else? They talked about so many different things. They talked about a lot about white supremacy too. Just basically giving so much information that you won't be able to learn in like a history book. And then towards the end, it was like the 10 Commandments, basically. And then towards the end, they gave a little brief background of like recommending what solutions are. And I'm big on solutions.
Solutions, yes.
And that was my whole, you know, reasoning when I expressed myself, because it was my first time, I think, to expressing myself, actually maybe second, because we had to introduce ourselves to the group.
Yes.
And I just expected for better solutions instead of asking, why did I choose to move to a predominantly white town, or why fix the education if it's not broken? Neither one of those and the other options that they gave is just not coming up with a solution. You know, some of the solutions at the end of the movie was just basically a lot of people of color need to own businesses, because when you own businesses, you'll have your own, you know, network coming in. You can leave those businesses underneath your kids' names, and then therefore when you pass, your kids are going to be set up financially. And I mean, as sad as it is, I mean, finance is a very big part in anybody's life. You don't have the correct finances, you're not going to be able to provide a roof over your head, and I'm a living testimony of that. So I just am looking forward to more solutions, doing more footwork, meeting with the superintendent, letting him know what are our ideas, trying to get people of color. Let's take a look at some of those applications. Let's go back a year, 2, 3 years. You know, see where, like, try to find out where exactly does the problem lie. You know, some people were saying, well, this was me speaking from my own experience in the town and my opinion. I thought my opinion, maybe there aren't enough people of color applying and it's not welcoming, because I have got to be honest, if I was a school teacher and I knew that this was a predominantly white town, I'm going to apply to Framingham. I'm going to apply to Hopkinton, because at least I can sit down and have a lunch with you know, someone who looks like me. And I know that, you know, it might sound bad to say, but that's just where I'm at. You know, that's where I'm at right now in my life, being 26 with a 7-year-old who has transitioned from one place to another, you know, and it wasn't easy for me. It's been very difficult, and I don't want any sympathy from anybody. I just want people to look at me and look at my daughter and understand we really aren't different. Me and you were not different. Me and you were not different at all. We are the same.
Well, and I don't think that's unrealistic at all, or bad to say. Like, nobody wants to be the only. If you dropped any one of us in a community of people who we didn't know, who didn't look like us, we would feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Which is why when I brought my son to HCCC for the first time, I was glad he wasn't the only black child there.
Yeah.
Right? And I struggle with what to call him. Like Francesca says, she's black because she's Haitian American. My son has a history that he needs to develop what he calls himself.
Exactly.
Right.
You have to let him do that.
I have to.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned, right? So I call him black, I call him brown, I call him multiracial. I don't know what he is. He'll have to figure that out for himself.
Yeah.
But you know, in his class right now, he is one of 4, I would say 4 children of color and ethnicity, maybe 5.
Charlene's the only black girl in the class.
Right.
There's
So-
no other black kids in the classroom, not
Right.
like the
So
whole class, just
Right.
the classroom.
So he has another black child, but he has a couple of Indian children. Another one of his friends is multiracial. Yeah, so he's not the only, but it's a small group, right? And one of the things that I have learned through listening to educators and people of color is that this group of people are going to need each other to support each other.
Yes.
It's really important that we get them together, and that they have each other for support. That way, they're not the only. They're not the only person at the table. And that they have, you know, and one person has less power than a group of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this is really an ambitious program. I hope you do become a nonprofit. I think that goes a long way to establishing a presence. It gives you roots.
Yeah.
And it also enables you to raise some money so that you can actually undertake some projects. But the
like
other
the African American museums, we said that one time, right? Like maybe visiting or going to like the African American museums, you know, all around the world. But you know, we can't do that. Just Michelle and I and the few people that we have in our corner. We can't do that on our own.
Right.
Well, even getting our children to like Dorchester to some of the history there.
Yeah.
It'd be amazing.
I wonder, I go back to the "is there a problem" question for so many of the people in town. I would just love to know the answer. You know, is there a problem? Does it bother you? Do you think Holliston should be more diverse? I don't know how to word it yet, but I will figure that out.
So here's my take on this, and then I'll let Francesca speak, because this is really about her and not about me. When a person of color tells you there's a problem, you should listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is her experience. And this is what I said on the Facebook page. You better be careful about what you say in response to what she's saying, because this is her experience, and you don't have a right to tell her experience is wrong. You can tell her opinion's wrong, you know, but you can't tell her experience is wrong.
Right.
And so that's where I'm at with that. I think there's a problem because one of the things I've learned as an ally is to listen to a person of color, and she tells me there's a problem.
Yeah.
I think you also have become aware that there's a problem because you're looking at the world through your son's eyes or your child's eyes. And as you begin to look through those eyes, then suddenly it looks different.
Right.
You know?
And we understand that diversity is the diversity in Holliston, it's bigger than Holliston. We get that. It's all around the world. However, we have kids that are going to be here.
Yeah, we're going to start here
for a long time.
Yep.
I don't want to go anywhere. She just bought a home. I know she ain't going anywhere.
Yes.
You know, due to the fact that I'm trying my best to remain consistent and have some type of consistency cycle going with Charlene, since we have none. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I'm well aware that the diversity in the town, it's bigger than the town.
Right.
You know, it's in the nation. It's around the whole entire world. However, because I am a person of color and because my child goes to school with a lot of people who are not of color, I'm going to do my best to make her comfortable, and every other person of color, and as well as the people who are not of color, because we were saying that on the Facebook page. It's very important for the white kids to see educators that are of color too. I don't think that it's fair that your son or your daughter, you know, is seeing a black professor for his or her first time in college. That's ridiculous. And it doesn't even have to be, you know, all the teachers need to change or whatever. You can get some admins in there, a music teacher in there, a coach in there.
Interns
in there, some substitute teachers in there that are of color. You know, it doesn't have to be like this. You know, it's 2018. Slavery ended 148 years ago. You know, during that movie that I suggested you guys to watch, they were saying that, like, the prison system is modern day slavery, and it's really it's a
big issue. It's a complex issue, but as you say, we can only focus on our little corner of the world.
Right.
And there is racism here, even if it's coded, and even if it's more subtle.
Even if they're nice about it, and they say it in a nice way, it's there. I'm a living testimony to it.
Well, I mean, I saw it over the summer. There was, I don't remember, I think it was on maybe Holliston Happy. I saw a Facebook post about why are these people at Lake Winthrop. These people are at Lake Winthrop.
I remember
that. We do have that.
And so here's the thing, is that those people they were talking about were all Spanish-speaking people.
Yep.
You know, so what makes you think they don't live here?
Yeah.
You just have to look at demographics of the town. But that's coded racism. I mean, it wasn't made with a racist intent, but it has a racist impact.
Behind it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up. If there's anything that you want to say that you feel you haven't covered,
if you don't already follow Diverse Holliston, it's right on Facebook. You could just search Diverse Holliston, space it out. We are a closed group.
But we'll add you.
Yes, we will add you.
And it's not just about color.
Yes.
Again, we're looking for people of different
community,
LGBTQ community, people of different abilities, people with children of different abilities.
Yes.
I mean, this is what makes up the diverse fabric of our town.
Yes.
Right? It's not just like a heteronormative, cisgendered, all those buzz terms. You know, we are a multifaceted people. Even the white people have different backgrounds and cultures and come from different belief systems here. In addition, you know, we're not just progressive. You know, we're not just a progressive liberal group. We're looking for people of different opinions and different, you know, it's not about Republican or Democrat.
No.
You know, we are looking to engage everyone in this town in a conversation about how we all live together.
And teach our children.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you both very much.
Thank you for having us, Mary.
Okay. And you can just... we'll close. I do have a little gift for you. That,
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That. This is
awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'll tell you the good news about them. On the front seat of your car, when they fall on the floor, they don't break.
Oh, yes. Look how
However, I do have to say the pen's not my favorite, but that's a different story. Anyway, okay, folks, that's a wrap for now. I hope that you'll follow this conversation and maybe start one in your own neighborhood or in your own group. And do go onto the Facebook page, Diverse Holliston, and participate with us, please. Okay, we'll see you next time. Thanks.